Okay, so I did a little bit of an intro into Elijah at the end of the last video. So we'll just continue reading on now from the beginning of 1 Kings 17. Now Elijah, by the way, Elijah's ministry is going to be to the northern kingdom of Israel. So will Elisha, his successor. And since the books, so we're only going to be really reading about Elijah here in 1 Kings and 2 Kings. We're not going to read about Elijah or Elisha in the Chronicles account, because Chronicles only focuses on what's going on in Judah, and these men's ministry was not in Judah. Now Elijah the Tishbite from Tishbite in Gilead said to Ahab, "As the Lord, the God of Israel lives," that's L-O-R-D, capital L-O-R-D, Lord. So that's Jehovah God, the covenant name of God, "whom I serve, there will be neither dew nor rain in the next few years except at my word." So at some point before Elijah comes onto the scene in front of Ahab, he gets permission from God to close up the skies and not let it rain until he says so, basically. I don't know why God chose to allow Elijah to do that, but Elijah apparently has permission from God to command the rain to stop and start again. At his discretion, apparently. So, then the word of the Lord came to Elijah, "Leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan. You will drink from the brook, and I have ordered the ravens to feed you there." So he did what the Lord had told him. He went to the Kerith ravine east of the Jordan and stayed there. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. So God is tending to Elijah's physical needs while Elijah is hiding out from Ahab. And as we'll find out later, Ahab is looking for Elijah. He wants to find this guy and get him to open the skies back up again so that it will rain. He's being fed by unclean birds because ravens are an unclean animal. And of course, this is not natural behavior for ravens to perform. So they're having their hardwired, their normal DNA circuitry overwritten by God, who is commanding them to bring Elijah this bread and meat every morning and evening. And the raven is an unclean animal. And there is a lesson to be learned here, because Elijah is going to be spending time later on here in the house of an unclean Gentile. Sometime later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of the Lord came to him. "Go at once to Zarephath of Sidon." Remember, Jezebel is the daughter of the king of Sidon. So this would be in her father's territory here that he's supposed to go to. "And stay there." So Elijah's going to be hiding out in the enemy's backyard. "I have commanded a widow in that place to supply you with food." So he went to Zarephath. When he came to the town gate, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and asked, "Would you bring me a little water in a jar so I may have a drink?" As she was going to get it, he called, "And bring me, please, a piece of bread." "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she replied. Now remember, this is a Gentile woman. She's living in Sidon. She does not follow Elijah's God. So she's referring to that God as your God, Elijah, because he's not her God. She may be aware of him. Obviously she is. But she does not consider herself that God to be her God, or her to belong to that God. "As surely as the Lord your God lives," she said, "I don't have any bread. Only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. I'm gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." I don't think she's going to eat the sticks here. She's going to use the sticks to stir the pot with the flour and the little oil. They have no food. Okay, it's been rainless. There's been no rain in the ground, and that's drying everything up, so they don't have any food. So they're going to eat what they have left, and then they're going to sit around and starve. Elijah said to her, "Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, Make a small cake of bread for me from what you have, and bring it to me. And then make something for yourself and your son. For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry, until the day the Lord gives rain on the land. So he is going to keep this widow and her son alive through the resources they currently have, until the rain comes again and replenishes the ground and replenishes the resources. Her supplies on hand are not going to run out until that day comes. Her task, though, is going to be to feed the prophet first. He needs to get the food first, and then she can get her food and her son's food, and they'll have enough until the day the rain comes again. She went away and did as Elijah had told her. So there was food every day for Elijah and the woman and her family. But for the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. Sometime later, the son of the woman who owned the house became ill. He grew worse and worse, and finally stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, which means he's dead, okay, that means he has died. It doesn't mean he's passed out. It doesn't mean he's entered into some sort of deep coma. It means he's died. You have to remember, these people knew what death was. They were more familiar with death than we are today. They knew how to identify a dead body. They knew how to identify when someone had died. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" So she's thinking that he was here ultimately to judge her. She sees him as a man of God, or a Ben Elohim, or Ish Elohim, I guess, man of God. "Give me your son," Elijah replied. He took him from her arms. So this son is still, I don't know how old this widow is. This widow could still be fairly young. We think of old widows as being like 60, 70-year-old women or whatever. This woman could be as young as, 35 or 40. If her husband had died in battle or working somewhere out in the, who knows? I mean, they had hard lives back then. Her son apparently is still young enough for her to be able to carry him in her arms. So she can't be too old of a woman if her son is still that young. I doubt she'd be able to have him in her arms if he were anything more than a few years old. And so her son is still probably a small boy at this point, which means she herself is probably not very old. But who knows? We really don't know. At any rate, she apparently was carrying him, or maybe she was just leaning over him, I'm not sure. And so he took him from her arms, carried him to the upper room, he was saying, so Elijah is carrying this kid, or this young man, who knows, and laid him on his bed. Then he cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, have you brought tragedy also upon this widow I am staying with, by causing her son to die?" Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times. I don't know what that means. Did he lie down on top of him? Did he wave his arms over him? I don't really know what that means. So he's doing something. He's performing some sort of ritual here. And he cried out to the Lord, "O Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." The Lord heard Elijah's cry, and the boy's life returned to him, and he lived. Elijah picked up the child and carried him down from the room into the house. So he's picking this kid up and carrying him. This couldn't have been too terribly a big kid. This is not a full-grown young man, so this woman probably isn't too old of a widow. Who knows, though? He gave him to his mother and said, "Look, your son is alive." Then the woman said to Elijah, "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." Up until now, she may not have known that. She may have known that he was a prophet of a god, Israel's God, but she's a Philistine, a Phoenician, a Sidonian. She may be aware of Israel's God, but she doesn't consider Israel's God to be her God. But now she does. Salvation has come to this house now due to the presence of Elijah and through the death and physical resurrection of this child. This is the first recorded resurrection in the scriptures, by the way. This is the first time from the beginning of the Bible until now that we have seen God, through Elijah in this case, raise someone from the dead. This is not a permanent resurrection. This child would have grown up, he would have gotten older, he would have died again eventually at some point. It's not recorded or anything like that. But at some point later on in time, this child would have grown up, and he would have gone on to die again. This is not a permanent resurrection. But this is the first time in the scriptures that we have recorded an instance of God, through a prophet, resurrecting a dead person, bringing life back into a dead body. Again, not permanently. This is not a permanent resurrection for this child, but it is a calling back of the soul from after death. We have not seen this happen before. Okay, this is quite a step forward here. This is God now showing, through Elijah, showing this Gentile woman, actually, this Phoenician lady and her son, that this God of Israel has power over death to the degree that he can call back dead people. We read in the Song of Solomon that love is as strong as death. Now we're finally seeing a glimpse that God is actually stronger than death, and that he can call back dead people and restore the lives to dead bodies. So we haven't yet really started looking forward to resurrection someday. That is going to start seeping into the message, though. As Israel and Judah both continue to decline and face their own extinction and oblivion as national entities, we are going to start turning our attention towards what happens after we're gone. And some of the prophets from this point forward are going to start hinting at this idea of a resurrection to come someday. But this is our first instance in Scripture of God bringing back to life someone who had died. And this kid was dead, okay? It's like, it says he'd stopped breathing. That means he's dead. Ancient people knew what it was like for someone to be dead. They knew that better than we did. They would have been more qualified to diagnose when a child stops living than most people today would, frankly. The next section is a major section, and 1 Kings 18 is a major chapter, so we'll be doing that one by itself in its own video.